So, all right, I'm gonna get this live thing going here. Waiting for a couple more people to join. Okay. All right. All right, we're back on live stream. So, just the live stream is back up. Whatever I did, they forgave me for it. And so now I can live stream again. All righty. So we are looking at uh, tragedy of the commons as far as our AP unit is concerned. And I'm going to go ahead and share this. Okay. All right, and as soon as this pops up. All right, so this is also in your YouTube playlist. And I like the way this guy does it. The ones in the AP Classroom are good, but this guy kind of goes through your topics that are in your classroom Canvas. So I'm going to keep on trying to get a list. And he does have a video for every topic that you have to
Mr.
cover.
Smeads, and today we'll be starting off Unit 5 by covering Topic 5.1, which is the tragedy of the commons. So the tragedy of the commons is this idea that people tend to overuse public or shared resources since they don't experience the negative consequences of doing so. It can help us understand issues as complex as air and water pollution and as simple as why public restrooms are so dirty. Our objective for the day is to be able to explain the concept of the tragedy of the commons. And the essential knowledge that we need in order to do this is to know that the tragedy of the commons suggests individuals tend to use public or shared resources in their own self-interest, which will deplete these resources. Our suggested science skill for the day is concept explanation. So first we'll define what the tragedy of the commons is. The phrase was originally coined by a British economist, William Foster Lloyd, who used the overgrazing of animals on shared public lands as an example of when individuals act in their own self-interest rather than the interest of the greater good. But it didn't become part of mainstream environmentalist theory until 1968, when an American ecologist named Garrett Hardin wrote an essay with the title, The Tragedy of the Commons, which drew heavily from Lloyd's work. The basic idea is that individuals tend to overuse shared resources in their own self-interest, which will deplete these resources. Now, there's two really important key points here. They have to be public resources, not private ones, because then the users would experience the negative consequences of their overuse. And the second one is that the resource has to be depleted by this overuse. So it can't be something that's not affected by overuse. So we'll take a look at some examples now. The classic example is overgrazing, and that's having too many animals on one patch of land, as we can see sheep here in the picture. Then there's overfishing, which is another classic example. So people catching so many fish that we deplete fish populations and leave none for future generations. Water and air pollution of all sorts are another great example. And then finally, we have overuse of groundwater, which we'll look at a little more in depth with a specific Michigan example. So why does the tragedy of the commons happen? Well, the biggest reason is that when no one owns a resource, no one directly suffers the negative consequences of depleting or overusing that resource. The same idea that applies to public restrooms applies to public resources. So if you've ever been in a public restroom, they're oftentimes quite dirty. There's a lot of paper towel left on the floor or water splashed all over the mirror. And this is because no one directly feels responsible for keeping it clean. So the people that use it don't have to suffer the consequences of it becoming dirty because they get to just leave and go home. On the other hand, if they owned that restroom, if it was in their own house, they'd probably treat it a lot differently. They'd probably keep it a lot cleaner. For a Michigan example, we have a private company, Nestle, who recently submitted a request to increase the rate of pumping water from a well in Everett, Michigan, from 250 to 400 gallons a minute. This is because the groundwater that they're pumping is a public shared resource. So they're not going to suffer the negative consequences of overusing it. If they overuse this groundwater source and deplete it, and it's not available for future use, they can just move and find another site to pump groundwater. They aren't stuck living there with the consequences of having depleted that groundwater. Another cause for the tragedy of the commons is this idea that if I don't overuse the resource, someone else will. So we have a great comic here to illustrate that. We have the fisherman on the left saying, well, there it is, the last fish in the ocean. And he seems kind of concerned about this. And the guy on the right has got a big grin. He says, woohoo, at least we beat the Russians and the Spaniards to it. So that's just kind of illustrates this idea that people assume if I don't overuse the resource, someone else will. So why not profit from what's left of it? And then finally, there are just oftentimes no real direct consequences for overusing or depleting a resource. We see this especially in developing nations like Peru here, where there's hazardous medical waste just being dumped into a river. So without laws that will threaten to sue or impose harsh fines on people that do this, there's less of an incentive to care for those publicly shared resources. So what's the problem with the tragedy of the commons? Why is this really such a big issue? Well, the first issue is that things like overfishing can lead to total depletion of resources. So we have this case of the Atlantic cod here, which was overfished severely in the late 60s and in the 70s. And then we see this huge population crash. And so fishermen are going to lose their income. And in parts of the world where people really rely on fish for food, there may even be starvation. Another great example is air pollution. So air pollution comes from driving our cars. It comes especially from coal-fired power plants to produce the electricity we demand. And so this is going to put things like sulfur dioxide into the air, and it's going to be really harmful to people's lungs. It damages their respiratory tract. It can make asthma and bronchitis worse. And over the long run, there's going to be increased healthcare costs for these people who are suffering from these respiratory issues. Another great example is pesticide use. So farmers put pesticides on their crops to increase their yield, increase the amount of food they produce and their profits. But these pesticides are washed away in the rain. They can get into local rivers and streams or even trickle down to the groundwater. And that can contaminate groundwater sources that people use for drinking. It can damage fish populations in the streams that people rely on for recreation and for income. And so all of these are what we call negative externalities. So negative externality is a cost that comes with a human activity, but that isn't experienced by the person that's doing that activity. So the coal-fired power plants that are producing a lot of sulfur dioxide, they don't experience the negative healthcare costs of the people who have worsened asthma or bronchitis. Or the farmer who sprays pesticides on their crops, they don't experience the negative recreational dollars that are lost from downstream communities whose fish populations suffer. And so we can see that these negative externalities are basically passed on to a different person somewhere else. And that's what we call an externality, because the cost is externalized. Think of it kind of as like an unintended consequence. So how do we solve the tragedy of the commons? Well, the first concept is to make these publicly shared resources private, either by selling them to individuals or by having government ownership so that someone is responsible for maintaining them and they don't fall victim to the tragedy of the commons. Another way to do this is to impose fees or taxes for using the resources. So examples would include having a permit system for grazing or forcing logging companies to pay a permit to come and log an area. And that idea is that the more that people have to pay per unit of a resource they use, the more likely they are to consider using less and to use it more sustainably. And then the last option is more of a punitive option. This is the idea of imposing taxes, fines, or even criminal charges for groups or individuals that are polluting shared resources, especially air, soil, and water. So let's look at some examples. We have the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, and the Safe Drinking Water Act. And these are all acts that give the EPA the power to impose fines, penalties on companies or individuals that are polluting these shared resources. In terms of grazing, we have something called the Bureau of Land Management, and they oversee tons of public rangelands in the western United States. They collect grazing fees from ranchers, and they also conduct studies on the quality of the land and help restore it so that it doesn't fall victim to the tragedy of the commons.
All right, I wanted to pause it there. This is important, okay? Basically, with the tragedy of the commons is that people will do what they want to do as long as it's not illegal. Nobody's monitoring them. But when you impose fines and taxes and things of that nature, then they're a little more apt to do the right thing. So there are agencies that are responsible for enforcing these laws. So it's not like the police are going to do this. There are agencies that are responsible for actually monitoring what you're doing, and they're the ones that are able to legally fine you, tax you, or impose some type of penalty for misbehaving with the environment. Okay, so you have to be aware of the Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, Safe Water Drinking Act, and they are regulated by the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA. Um, so keep that in mind when you're thinking about this topic. Also, I wanted to kind of just make you aware of how many things he said when I asked you to watch the Lorax. How many things that he just said that are in the Lorax? Okay, it was a cartoon, but it was a serious cartoon, and he meant it to be a serious. Dr. Seuss was a very deep person. He wasn't just a silly. He wanted to educate people, and this was one of those very, very serious topics that he covered.
Our suggested science practice for topic 5.1 today is explaining environmental concepts or processes. So I want you to try to answer this practice FRQ. It says the oceans of the world are often referred to as a commons. So identify one other commons, explain how human activity affects that commons, and then propose a solution for managing that commons. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today.
All right. So in the AP classroom, I believe I've assigned that question to you. But what I want you to look at today is in Canvas. So I want you to, well, let's look at the module first, and then I'll come to this. So if you have not already looked at tragedy. Okay. All right. So if you haven't already looked at this unit in Canvas, please make sure that you do and that you've read it. And they give you just a lot of background information on what the topic means, but he covered it quite well. And again, commons means something that is common to everybody. And when it's common to everybody, people don't take care of it as much as they should. So kind of go through and do this little exercise here. But what I want you to do today, so one of the things that goes along with environmental stewardship is looking at your ecological footprint. Excuse me. Talking too fast. All right, where'd it go? All right, so what I want you, so I'm gonna go show this video fast, not fast, but show this video, and then I have a link for you to do your ecological footprint. So they're going to show you in this one
Hi, I wanted to show you
how to
how
do
you
it.
can use one of these ecological footprint calculators to calculate your ecological footprint. So we're going to get started and we're going to just kind of do a hypothetical person. So we're going to find out our personal overshoot day, which is the day of the year that we overshoot our resource use on the planet and we need to go to another Earth. And we find out how many planets do we need if everybody lives like us. So let's get started. So how often do I eat animal-based products? Let's say that this person has a balanced diet and they eat meat and veggies a few times a week. And we can say which ones they eat. Let's say maybe not so much beef and lamb, but lots of poultry, maybe more shellfish. And let's say um, I eat dairy quite a bit. Okay. Um, let's go to the next one. Now here we're going to say how much unprocessed or locally grown food that we make or do we eat. So um, let's say most of our stuff is from the grocery store and it's not locally grown. Maybe 20% is local. Let's do that. And we'll go next. Let's say we have a house that is freestanding and it does have running water. And let's say our house is constructed with wood, but you can choose other things. And now let's say that there are 5 people in this house. So it's like, so let's say we have a mom, 2 parents and 3 kids. And the size of our home, let's say maybe 2,500 square feet. So it's big, but not like the biggest house that ever existed. We have electricity, let's say, and it's average efficiency. And then how much comes from renewable resources? Let's say it's pretty low. We don't have any solar panels or anything like that. And now, how much trash do we generate? Let's say we generate about the same amount of trash as our neighbors. Um, and then let's look at our clothing. Um, Annually, average. Let's say we recycle a lot of paper, and let's say we do most of our plastic. We don't purchase new books very often, but we do like to replace our gadgets, and we replace out-of-date appliances sometimes, and we're about average with our clothing. Okay. And then how much do we travel by motorcycle? Let's say 0, and let's say we travel 150 miles a week by car. And then the average fuel economy, we don't have the motorcycles, so we don't have to worry about that. And let's say we have an SUV, so maybe we're getting 20 miles to the gallon. Okay. And then how often do we carpool? Do we ride with other people? We just kind of do our family, let's say. And we live somewhere where there's no public transportation, so let's say that.
That's where I live.
And how many hours do we fly each year? Let's say like maybe 10, 15. And then you can skip the email and the name, and you can just skip to view your results. And so this hypothetical person's personal overshoot date is the 21st of March. And if everyone on the planet lived like this person, they would use we would need 4.5 Earths. And then it says, why can't I get my footprint within the score of within the means of one planet? And that's because we're using a lot of some of the societal stuff that requires assistance and things like that. You can look at the facts and figures. So you
All right, I stopped it there for a minute. In the assignment that I'm going to give you, I've asked you to do a screenshot of your answer. So the screenshot would be this one. Okay, so this will be your final results. And so I would ask you to screenshot that and analyze what your results are. It would be that page. All right, there, finish.
and things like that. You can look at the facts and figures. So you can see, where
And
so
this
you can
one.
see the most is your car and your house. This person is most of their category. And then you can see it's 7.3 hectares is their global footprint, and 14.2 tons of CO2 per year. And you can choose how you feel about your footprint. You can explore the data a little better. So you can look at your country and you can see, how yours relates to everyone else in your country. Or you can even look at other countries. So you could say, compared to Australia. And then there also are some solutions. So there's some ways that you can reduce your ecological footprint, which we'll talk about in the module. And then you can also retake the quiz. So for example, you could think of a celebrity or something like that, and you could put a giant house in or lots of air mileage and see how that person lives compared to you.
All right, I don't want you to do that. I want you to do you. Okay, just do you. Okay, so I am going to tweak the assignment so that it's kind of goes a little bit more along with what she did. But the assignment basically is so I'm giving you a link to go to. You're going to go through and do what she just did, answer all the questions for you. So for example, you may take the bus more than you ride in a personal car. So you need to think about carpooling in that sense. Or if you have a motorcycle, like some of y'all might be too young for a motorcycle, but you never know. So things like that. So you go through and honestly answer the questions, and then I want you to um, screenshot your results, and then the two pictures, and then do the comparison in your analyzing of how you compare to other people in the United States. Don't compare yourself to the rest of the world, but compare yourself to folks in the United States. All right, so that is in Canvas as well. So I'm going to let you, I'm going to, like I said, tweak the assignment and then let you know when I put it back up. Um, so if you haven't read Tragedy of the Commons, go ahead and read that, but then come back and read this one as well. And so this one, we'll be finished with these two today. Okay. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing, do attendance, and tweak that assignment. And then I'll let you know when I have it up for you to look at. Oh. Okay, we got a few people absent. Good thing about that is we are taping again, so hopefully they'll catch up. Got more than a few. One, two. I also want to say that we are going to keep moving forward kind of at a rapid pace because exam is coming up. We got like a month and a half, and we want to make sure that we cover everything and that you are most prepared for. I know everybody's not taking exam, but most of you are. All right, attendance is done. I was telling the folks in my other class that I noticed as soon as I do attendance, folks go, "Oh, she did attendance. She marked me absent," and they show up. Uh, okay, what I'm doing is changing. I had given you a different calculator to use, but decided I should use the one that is actually the same as what she just did. So. Okay. Okie dokie. All right, nobody else has joined. I thought for sure somebody would have joined by now. All right, because we do have quite a few people absent. All right, so I've tweaked the assignment a little bit to use the same calculator that they used in Canvas. There are a lot of different versions of this. So you might have to, because I tweaked it, you might have to refresh your page in order to see it, but it'll be on your home page, not in the module. Home page, home page. So let me go back out here, make sure that it is exactly where it is. Carbon footprint. All right, so you have two things to do, carbon footprint and tragedy of the commons. Carbon footprint, if you go there, I don't know why I didn't hyperlink, but if you copy and paste this into, or just go there, it'll take you to the same calculator that she was using. You click on it and then you answer the questions. Okay. And again, as you go through, um, be honest about your answers. And then at the end of it, go ahead and screenshot the picture of how many Earths you're consuming. And then the next step, which explains what does that mean? So the next page explains what all those, what your results mean. And then you need to give, let me come back to, then you need to, so there's 5 points each, one for your screenshot of the final answer, one for the screenshot of the explanation. And then you need to write a brief discussion about, analyze the results. What do you think about that? Does that make you a good steward of the earth? How could you be a better steward of the earth? What would you change, if anything, about your results? Okay, so 5 points each, 15 points, and this is due by next class. Okay. Any questions? Everybody good with this? Any questions about what to do? All right, so again, you want to be here and you are calculating your personal ecological footprint. And once you finish that, if you haven't done your Tragedy of the Commons Lorax assignment, please do that. We're going to try to stay on top of things and not fall behind, not lose points for it being late. This is our last quarter. We're going to make it the best quarter. All right, and then notice the overall question is, how many planets do we need if everybody lives like you? So that when you do your analysis at the end, that's what you're looking at. It's going to show you how many planets will be needed if everybody lives like you. And it gives you a date as to when your overshoot date. So those are the two results that you're going to get. And then you want to analyze it. All right, and notice that there's a button where you can tweak your answer. I should be sharing that. I was doing mine, but I will, and I can't go backwards, but I can, underneath, let me close this for a minute. Underneath the sliding bar, there's a thing that says add details to improve your accuracy. So you can click on that and it'll give you ways to add more detail to your answer. Okay. And then you can save that and that'll add to give you a better result as at the end. Okay. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to do mine. Don't forget to press the button where it gives you the chance to give more detail. They've got a lot of questions there. Don't forget you need two screenshots. One of the Earths and then one of the explanation. Hmm. Now, I don't need a screenshot of how you feel, but I do want a written explanation as to what you think. And do go to the last page that says explore solutions, just because it has information that you need, but you don't have to write anything about it. All right, so just to be clear, I need 2 screenshots and a written explanation of your thoughts, your reflection thoughts on your carbon footprint. The explanation page, do I have mine up? I don't know if I can go back. Hold on. Facts and figures. Okay, I'm going to show you what mine looks like. If you click on the top, okay, if you go by the sun, the first one, if you go, the top says summary. So that's the one that's going to give you pictures of the Earth. And if the next one says facts and figures, that's the one that's going to explain to you what your Earths look like. So that's the second picture that you need. And then how do you feel? I don't want you to give me the smiley faces and stuff. I want you to actually tell me what you think of your results. You're gonna have to actually read your results. Okay, so click on facts and figures, and that's the one that's going to give you an explanation. Here we go. It should give you by land type, by consumption category, and then it gives you another thing of your ecological footprint, carbon footprint, and percentage of. Oh, how cute. Ariana, are you with us? Hmm. The explanation pages, if you're looking at the bar at the top, it's you have things, it's one says summary, the other one says facts and figures. The facts and figures page is your explanation. So if you're looking at the tabs at the top of the page, you can actually go back and click on all of them. So the summary is the one that gives you the picture of all the Earths that you're going to use. The facts and figures page is your explanation of what that means. And so that's the second picture that you need to take. After that, it's how you feel. And I don't need a picture of how you feel, but I need you to explain in words. What do you feel about your results as far as um, what you use a lot, what you don't use a lot? How would you change? What would you do differently to change those results? And again, I don't want you don't have to explore your data with other countries, but I do want you to look at the solutions at the end and that you're just reading that so that you're looking at things that can be done. All right, Journey, this is a different picture using using the other link that I removed, but that's not the picture that you need. So I'm going to ask you to resubmit. I know you're I thought I saw you doing the right one. Yeah, I had originally used this link, but um, well, I don't know. I tell you what, I'm gonna redo this. That's why you were asking me what to. Yeah, okay. Okay. Yeah, use the link that's in the assignment folder. And that way you'll get the pictures that. That's pretty. Okay, folks, time has run out. So if you know what you're doing, I think a couple of people have submitted already. But I noticed you submitted today's assignment and you still haven't submitted Tragedy of the Commons, so make sure you get that done as well. All right. That being said, you all have a wonderful weekend. Be careful, tomorrow is supposed to storm. I know y'all heard y'all had some storms yesterday. Atlanta's supposed to have some storms tomorrow. So be safe. Take care.